So far in the jQuery section, we've seen how jQuery is a little bit easier to read and write than JavaScript. And it's a bit more flexible as well in that we can easily select classes or a range of element types using exactly the same syntax. But there's also a number of functions that are very easy to do with jQuery that would be very difficult to do with plain JavaScript. And one of those is fading content. So let's see how easy that is to achieve with jQuery. So let's try and fade out whatever item is clicked when we click it rather than making it disappear. So again, to select the item, we use this. And then it's as simple as applying the function fade out to it. Don't forget the parentheses. Let's take a look. There we go. So a lovely fade animation just by using a single keyword there. We can also use hide just to show you, which is effectively the same as setting the display to none as we saw in the previous section, that just does the fade but without any kind of gradual fading. As with pretty much all jQuery functions, we can apply a lot of parameters and settings to those functions if we want, and the easy way to find out what those are is to do a quick search. So if I start with something like jQuery fade out, likely the top result will be the jQuery.com website itself, which I'd thoroughly recommend. It has some really good documentation and examples on it. So if you want to find out, for example, you might want to make it fade out more slowly or more quickly or in a number of different ways, then you'll get all of the options here. And let's just look at a couple of the examples. So this shows you roughly what's going on there, but we can also look at some direct examples. So like that one there, and you can see that that's a slow fade out. So we could try that ourselves if we want. And there's some more complicated content here that looks like it's going to fade out when it's clicked. And so if I try that, there you go. So the click is doing the fade out, and then it's adding some text as well. So that's the next thing we're going to see. I'll just show you that again. When we clicked on really there, it did the fade out, and then when the fade out completed, it did something else. And that can be really useful, not just with fading, but with any function that might take a certain amount of time. You often want to do something else just when it's completed. So let's see how we do that using our fade here. So first off, let's change it to a nice slow fade out so that we can see. There we go. See it happening a little more slowly. So how would we add a callback function, i.e. a function that happens when the fade out is complete? Well, we add it as a parameter in the function call itself. So just after we add the slow parameter, we're going to add a function, and then this will be defined in just the same way that we set up a function on the click. So whatever I write here will now happen as soon as the fade is completed. So for now, let's just do a nice alert. Fade out has finished. All right, let's take a look. So fade out, and there we go. Fade out has finished. So one of the particularly useful situations for callbacks is when you're getting data from another website or another bit of your website, which we'll see how to do in a couple of videos' time. And that could take a while if you've got a large bit of data and the user's internet connection is quite slow, for example. So you want to wait until you've got that data and then process it and do something with it. And callback functions are the perfect way to do that. All right, let's have a few challenges then. I'm going to get rid of all of this. And the first challenge is going to be, can you create a paragraph with some text and a button such that when the button is pressed, the paragraph fades out? Go for it. Okay, hope that went well. I'm going to get rid of my styles. because I don't need them anymore. So my paragraph, this is some text, phenomenally dull, and then my button. I'll give it an ID of fade out, and then we'll call it fade out text. All right, and then I just need to select my button like that, and then I want this to have a click function attached to it, just like that. And I want to fade out the text when that button is clicked. So I'm going to select the text. I'll just do it using P because it's a paragraph, and then fade out. Simple as that. Let's take a look. Fade out text. Oh, I've made a mistake there. Anyone see what it is? I forgot the parentheses. It's a function, so you always have parentheses after it, even if you're not going to have any options like slow or a callback function. There we go. And notice as well, once it's faded out, it's gone. So the display property of the paragraph is made equal to none, just as we saw before, and it's effectively not there anymore. Okay, so challenge 2 is going to be, can you have some text in a different paragraph which is initially hidden, and then when you press another button, it fades that text in? Go for it. All right, hope you managed to do that. So this text will be hidden initially, and now we're going to need some IDs to differentiate between our two paragraphs. So I'll have text and hidden text, and I'll change this to text so they're not confusing each other. And then I need to make hidden text hidden initially, so I'll bring some styles back in. There we go. So I only need to style hidden text, and the only style I need to give it is display none, and that will make it hidden initially. And then I'm going to have a button. The ID is going to be fade in, which is a little clue as to what the function is that I'm going to use. And that's fade in text. So let's just check that that's all okay. Yep, obviously fade in text at the moment doesn't do anything. Oh, forgot my semicolon there. So to make the fade in button do something, I need to select it in the usual way. Fade in. And I'm adding a click function to it in the same way as usual. And then, as I hope you figured out, to make something fade in, you just select it. So this is hidden text, and we want to make it fade in. And don't forget your parentheses. There we go. Let's have a look. Fade in text. Fantastic. There it is. All right, now there's one more challenge for you, and this one is a bit of a tricky one, but I have given you a clue to it earlier in the video. So what I now want you to do is to go back to having just a single paragraph, but instead of having just a fade out button, we're going to have a toggle button. And what that toggle button is going to do is, if the text is there, it will make it disappear. And if the text is not there, it will make it appear. So that's a pretty big challenge. There's a number of different ways you could do it, but give it a shot. Good luck. Okay, did you manage it? I'm going to show you a couple of different ways, starting with what I think is the best method, but ending with a method that allows us to use callbacks, which is quite nice. So let's do everything with a single function. And now we're working on the toggle button. So as I've changed quite a lot there, let's just check. At the moment, if I click toggle text, it should fade out. Great. Of course, what it doesn't do yet is fade back in. So what I need is some way to know whether the text has faded out or not, depending on what stage we are on our page. There's no way I can know just with the code here. I need to look at some property of the page. And what I can do, as I hope some of you spotted, is I can use the display CSS property to find out whether or not the text has been faded out. So if the text element has got a display property of none, then we're going to want to fade it in. Whoops. We want to take the text and fade it in. So that's what I was hoping you would think of doing. Don't worry if you didn't, but this is quite a neat way of doing it. So we're looking at the display property of the CSS of the text element. If that's equal to none, then that means it's not displayed. So we want to fade it in. If it's not equal to none, that means it is displayed. So we want to fade it out. Let's have a look. So toggling it, fades out. Toggling it again, fades in. Hurrah! So very well done if you did it that way. I'll just show you another way that might be better in certain situations, and that is to have a variable which keeps track of the state of the paragraph text. So we might call it something like text showing or text displaying or something like that, and we'll initially set it to true, because when we first run the page, the text is going to show. And then, instead of looking at the CSS property, we can just look at if text showing is true. And in fact, we can do a bit of a shortcut there, and we can just look at if text showing. Because remember, the if statement is looking for something which is true or false. And one advantage of using Boolean variables is that they are either true or false. So you don't need to write is equal to true. You can do if you want, it'll work. But you can leave it like just text showing. So let's have a quick look at that. But of course, if text is showing, I want it to fade out rather than fade in. So let's just make sure that's working for the fade out. It is, yep. It's not going to work for the fade in yet because we haven't updated text showing. So this is a little bit unnecessary, but I like to use callback functions whenever we can. So I'm going to add a callback function to our fade out, such that when the fade out is complete, we'll set text showing to false. So now it's no longer showing. So if we click it again, it will fade it back in. And of course, we'll need a callback function for that as well, which resets text showing back to true. Okay, let's check it out. So fades out, fades back in, fades out, fades back in. Fantastic. So as I say, in this case, I prefer the previous method just because it's a bit neater, but you might have situations where you can't just grab the information you need from a CSS property. And in those situations, you're probably going to want some kind of variable which keeps track of the state of the various items on your page. Well done if you managed to do that challenge. Don't worry too much if you didn't. It was a toughie. So now we know how to fade content in and out. We'll realize that fading is actually a specific example of the more general animating content which we can do with jQuery. So let's find out how we do that. We'll have our elements changing size, shrinking, growing, moving all over the place. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll do it in the next video.